Welcome to RD Tutorials. I'm your instructor Rajesh Durbala, and today we are going to discuss the concept of culture. This is a very integral and important part of consumer behavior. So this is going to be important as well as interesting. Now, you must have observed that the newborns of animals know what to eat, how to find and capture their food, how to hunt, how to escape from predators. And this ability is what they are born with. This is innate within them. Okay, and this is what we call instinct. Similarly, humans too have instincts, which are further ingrained by culture as they grow up. This guides their behavior and actions even when they are far removed from their culture. Ingrained, deep-rooted and seated and difficult to shake off, culture maintains a powerful influence on buying behavior. So it's very important for us to understand how culture influences the buying behavior of individuals. Likewise, consumption is also, it's associated with childhood memories and traditions that an individual finds difficult to shake off. And in this lecture, we will try to illustrate the same things. Okay, like if you ask people who are vegetarian to eat meat, it will be very difficult. It would be extremely difficult for them to do so. Now, showing the power of culture in our lives. For example, let us say, a few years ago, I lived in Maldives. Now, I'm a pure vegetarian. Now, when I moved to that country, I found finding vegetarian food to be quite difficult. The initial few days I had to just spend on or survive on bread and milk. That was quite difficult. And even though I tried my level best, I couldn't move to the staple diet in that country, that's the fish. Now, likewise, so we can generalize, like Indians who go abroad tend to stick to their own communities and long for traditional food. Now, it is to use what Adam Smith's phrase, an invisible hand that guides free market capitalism. It is, it just not guides a person's actions, but what to consume as well. How Indian consumers are guided by culture is evident from some of the examples, Like, for example, you must have seen that salons in India offer a discount on Tuesdays because people of some religion do not like to wash or cut their hair on this day. The Lakme salon, for instance, offers discounts on trendy Tuesdays to mitigate this cultural habit that keeps their salons empty on this day. Subway has a scheme to offer vegetarian subs in India on Tuesdays and Saturdays when many people avoid non-vegetarian food. Sales of cars and durables plummet or plunge down on Saturdays as it is considered inauspicious to buy metal on this day. So, cultural influences are indeed very strong. Understanding the cultural influences is very important. And being a marketeer, understanding how culture influences the consumption and buying behaviors, this is paramount knowledge that any marketeer or marketing manager need to have. Companies thus learn to operate in tune with a country's culture. However, they do attempt to change culture as well. Foreign food companies have successfully changed Indians' preference for culturally accepted foods to cornflakes, instant noodles and burgers. Right? So we have adopted cornflakes as a, main course breakfast. Likewise, even you can see oats is also making its way into our culture. The spread at which society is taking to the Western habits shows that culture can indeed change. Now, this lecture will try to give you an insight into what culture is and what are the various aspects of culture. So, moving on. Let us try to understand the meaning of culture. Now, we know that individuals exist within families, which in turn are part of larger culture. It describes people's way of life. Okay. Now, the smallest of all the entities is the individual. Now, individual resides or lives in families. Families are part of a larger entity called culture. Now, it describes people's way of life. Different groups of people may have different cultures. That's quite obvious, which is passed on from one generation to the next. Okay, so the culture, it moves. It's inherited. Culture is seen in the people's writings, the music, the paintings, the religion, the clothes, the cooking, the cuisine. Okay, and whatever you talk about. So, culture is omnipresent, we can say. Okay, so Hofstede in 1991, he tried to explain that people carry within themselves the patterns of thinking, feeling, and potential acting that were learned throughout their lifetime. Now, using the analogy of computers, he calls these patterns software of mind or culture. So Hofstede formally defines, he gives a definition to culture as the collective programming of mind which distinguishes the members of one group or category of people from other. Okay, so our mind is programmed in a different way than the minds of the Americans, or maybe in that matter of fact the Japanese or the Koreans. So that is what the collective programming of our mind, this is what distinguishes us from any other cultural group. Okay, so what companies do, companies try to catch or attach cultural meaning and memories to their products, and once they attach such meanings and memories to their products, many a times some foreign or alien products can also become an integral part of our culture. For example, Bata. Bata is a Czech brand. It's a brand from Czechoslovakia, but is considered as an Indian brand. Most of us believe it's an Indian brand. Okay, because it has used Indian culture successfully in its campaigns. So culture is also defined as the lens through which all phenomena are seen, apprehended, and assimilated. So the culture is the blueprint of human activity. It determines the coordinates of social action and productive activity. Okay, so this is quite important to understand. So this is what the basic meaning and definition of culture is. Now, how are cultural values acquired? Societies acquire cultural values by primarily these two methods. One is enculturation. Now, what does this mean? This means learning one's own culture through observation or informed learning. Okay, like when children learn by observing parents, that is what is enculturation. Okay, now if I want to learn my culture, let us say I want to learn how we pray in my culture, I may observe my parents, I may observe my elders, I may visit my temple, and I can see how people pray. Okay, and when I acquire that knowledge about my culture, that is enculturation. Now, through formal learning, when people are taught norms of behavior, and technical learning, when children are taught cultural norms by the teachers, that's also a part of enculturation. Okay, So many a times you may see in schools we do we do some prayers. Okay, that praying in the morning becomes a norm. Okay, so we pray, and it gets into my system that in my culture we pray in the morning. The first thing we do, or whenever we start a new activity, a deed or a task, we pray. Okay, and at the end of the day, when the entire day was successful, we thank God for the achievement or the success that we have achieved. So these are things that are taught, and we learn all these, we imbibe all these through observation. Okay, it can be through formal channels, through technical learning, or maybe through informal channels. Okay, so this is what is enculturation. Okay, the second is acculturation. Okay, now what is acculturation? This means learning of foreign cultures through exposure to other lands in the media, word of mouth, or observation. Okay, so I start learning about other cultures, okay, foreign cultures, through maybe media, or maybe through, in earlier times there were travelers. They used to visit various kingdoms, and the kings, they used to appreciate some foreign travelers coming to their kingdom and telling them about their country and all. So they learned a lot of they gained a lot of knowledge about other countries through travelers, okay, through explorers. So that was acculturation. Now today I watch a Japanese movie and I get some insights into some kind of Japanese culture. That is acculturation. I read about I read a travel blog about what to do and what not to do when I'm visiting Mexico. So again, I get a lot of insights about Mexico. That becomes acculturation. Okay, so we as society, we acquire cultural values by two methods. One is enculturation, and number two, acculturation. Enculturation is learning my own culture through observations, and acculturation is learning a foreign culture through media or word of mouth or through readings. Okay, so that is what is acculturation. So the first occurs in the family and in the environment, as children observe what is acceptable and what's not. The second is learned. People learn about norms and values of other countries. Okay, so the process of enculturation and how it affects the marketing strategy will be covered in the coming few lectures. Okay, so moving on, what are the various characteristics of culture? Now managers must figure out ways of positioning products within the systems of values and beliefs. Okay, I have to create an image of my product which should be acceptable, and it should be a perfect fit in the value system or the beliefs of that culture. In some cases, companies try to change these beliefs so as to encourage people to buy products, and otherwise these may look quite alien in that culture. Remember, this is quite risky, and this is arduous. So this can be done by only very, very, I can say, audacious companies. They have to display, the marketing managers have to display a lot of audacity when they attempt to change the culture of a society. Okay, so we find what culture has the following qualities. Okay, any culture has the following qualities. That is, one, the culture, it guides our actions. Okay, our actions are guided by the culture we come from. Like an invisible hand, culture guides our actions. This is reflected in the way people dress, their eating habits, the way they behave. Through cultural norms, standards of behavior are established. Okay, so if I do this, I'll be considered appropriate or normal in my society. I will be considered acceptable. And if I do not do this, I may be, outcasted. For example, in my culture, it's not considered appropriate to wear shoes within the house. Okay, so if I wear shoes within the house, I may not be considered acceptable. Okay, so there would be someone who may object to it. So this is what, whenever I go in my house or whenever I enter my house, I leave my shoes out. So this is an action which is guided by my culture. So through cultural norms, standards of behavior are established. Okay, so this is quite important to understand. This is important for companies as well, because they would like to know how to position products in cultures. For example, many individuals follow the lifestyle of their families even when they move out. Girls follow the lifestyle or the style of their mother's cooking, whereas boys talk and behave like their fathers. Okay, so it's quite important that the marketeers understand what the culture of a particular society or community is, and they have to position their products accordingly. And number two, the next one, culture, it satisfies needs. Okay, and how? The reason that people follow norms in that culture satisfies deep psychological needs. Individuals need to relate with social groups and have an orderly social life and fulfilled by cultural norms. Okay, so culture guides habits as to what, when, and where to eat, and also builds beliefs in individuals about what is good or bad. Now, companies, they have to or they want to participate in this process to associate their products with these strongly felt needs. Right? Then, third, the culture is learned. Okay? That is, as we have learned earlier, enculturation. Okay? Culture is learned. As children grow up, they are socialized and acquire culture. Okay? Both formal and informal learning are open to marketing influences. For example, people learn by looking at advertising, correct? So there are many ads which I have seen, which I remember, which have motivated to purchase, which have motivated me to purchase some products. Further, as one grows up, the individual learns ways of dressing and behaving from the people he see around him, okay, from his peers. Wearing fashionable clothes is an example of consumer learning. Okay, and then culture is dynamic. Culture changes with time. Culture is not stagnant or static. The process may be slow, but societies discard cultural practices, such as earlier we used to have discrimination in the form of caste and all. Okay, but as we progressed, we discarded all of them. Like we can say we have also discarded a lot of practices like sati or traditional dresses like dhoti, and acquire new ones. In India, culture has changed over a period of time as the society was exposed to globalization. For example, while earlier cheaper eating places called let us say dhabas were popular, but now the preference has shifted to branded foods and hangouts. Companies operate within existing cultures but also try to change culture by making consumers switch their habits. Now, whatever characteristics that we have discussed, they are used by companies in designing their offerings and also in their communications. So in the coming lectures, we will study how the interaction of cultural value system with the consumer behavior could be done through marketing communications. right? So till then, you can get in touch with me. I'm available in almost all the social media channels. I'm there on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. You can write to me directly at rajeshdurbala@gmail.com. Do subscribe to my channel for more important and interesting stuff. Thank you for now. Bye-bye.
Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.